we're fortunate enough to be part of her reinventive part of her life. So Mary, please take it away.
Well, thank you. Well, never does a man know the force that is in him until mighty affliction or grief has humanized the soul. That was written by F.W. Robertson, and it's really applicable. And today, of all days, at 9/11, it is when I realized that I was talking on bereavement on 9/11, it certainly couldn't be more appropriate. Well, good morning. I only wish that you were all here so we could have hugs and love and laughter all together. I'm unaccustomed to doing things on Zoom, but because of our world today, I guess I should become more accustomed to it. Please know I'm giving everybody a virtual hug and until I meet you personally. My name is Mary Willis, as Pat said, and I have spent half my life educating the medical profession, patients, and family members about various neurological disorders. I'm not a doctor of medicine, but I'm an administrator and an educator. I have been gifted, and I mean gifted, with positions at Loma Linda, City of Hope, Desert Regional, and Eisenhower for the past 35 years. So I'm delighted to talk to you and share some thoughts that might make your journeys easier and less stressful. My parents suffered Parkinson's disease. My dad had it for 22 years and my mother had it for 12. My father's Parkinson's disease unfortunately began at 54. My dad was a physician and he developed dementia and Alzheimer's. In those days, it was very difficult. We're talking about 1965. It was very difficult for doctors to diagnose the disease. And being an only child, it was my responsibility to take care of them. My son was only 4 months old, so it meant that I had to relocate them to Iowa, or to California from Iowa. My mother cared for my dad during the day, and I cared for him at night. And it became a point where I could no longer do that. So I placed him in a care center. And fortunately, at that time, I don't know that my father ever knew that he wasn't at home. Regardless, the decision to place someone in a home was one of the most difficult experiences that I've ever encountered. But I knew it was best for my father and certainly my mother and myself. The experience will never be forgotten. Caring for a loved one to the point of mental and physical and emotional exhaustion, which many of you are experiencing or have experienced, stays with you forever. Reflecting many years later, being so consumed by caregiving and raising a child as a single mother, I did not see that this was a gift of love. It was a chance to give back to my parents, to my dad, to my mom. And I was sharing some of the caring and love that they had given to me. When my mother, I had the opportunity to get her to enjoy the land of the living again after my father's death. Rosalind Carter once wrote in a book called Helping Others, there are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who currently are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregivers. As I stated earlier, I have not had the pleasure of meeting each one of you and listening to your personal journey. This is really important to me, and that's why I asked when we start our support group if we could have people come to the office, because it is a very personal group, and where you are in your journey is very personal and is to me. And that's why I'm not exactly thrilled with Zoom, because I don't feel it's as personal as I would want our support groups to be. Anyway, I'm hoping that I can enlighten your journey and the stages of grieving. I don't know where you are in your grieving process. I want to start rather at the beginning and the basics. It has been said that there's 5 stages of grieving, but I think it depends on the individual, and there could be more. If you've experienced more, please tell me at the end of our session so we can all share it. Denial is usually the number one emotion we experience first. It is the brain's way of protecting itself. Think about the times you've heard some negative information, whether it's from your children, the doctor, friends. We don't want to accept it immediately. We deny it. We seek a second opinion, or we Google it, or we ask family and friends, as it just can't be true. Sometimes we are able to go and understand the circumstances. Some people stay in denial for years, or at least until reality takes precedent. Stop and think how many times you have personally experienced denial, or watched your friends seeking the advice that they really wanted to hear. After denial, anger could be next. Why me? I have always been good. I have been kind, I've worked, I've helped other people, and I don't deserve this. Look at so-and-so. They never did anything for anybody. All they are is selfish, and nothing ever happens to them. Or I waited all these years to retire, and now this. I thought we would travel and enjoy life and do all the things we talked about. Look at our neighbors. They just got back from Europe, and now we can't go anywhere. This is not fair. How do we deal with this type of mental anguish? We can reach out and talk to our family, our friends, or even our physician. However, if you're like me, I did not want anyone to know how I felt. I think I was embarrassed to admit that I was jealous of someone. Would people think less of me if I was jealous of somebody else's happiness or being independent? I did not want to show that I was unable to handle the situation. I suffered because of it, and let me tell you, you will. Unfortunately, anger only builds up inside of you and will surface when you least expect it. That you develop health issues, you snap at your loved ones, or you take it out on strangers. Where you are you easily frustrated, inability to concentrate, a sense of being overwhelmed or overloaded, resentment? Do you have someone you can share your journey with? Do you feel you can discuss your anger with your minister, your physician, a family or friend? Or are you like me? Keep it all inside because I don't want anyone to know I have any weaknesses. Next would be bargaining. I think that everybody in the whole world has bargained, whether you're 5 years old or whether you're 50 years old. This may occur before anger. Sometimes when we get a diagnosis or we get news that we don't want to hear, we bargain. Listen, God, I'll go to church every Sunday for the rest of my life if you just create a miracle and make this go away. Or I'll give my possessions away to charity. Whatever you say, just make it go away. Also, I have known people that go to their physician at a university and tell them, I'll donate a large sum of money if you make this diagnosis curable. Bargaining is common in children. If you do this, I'll give you a treat. We have been involved in some form of bargaining all of our lives. And no matter who we are, we experience it. And it is not right, it is not wrong to try to make deals. Don't ever feel guilty about making bargaining deals with God or anyone else. But when they don't work, what occurs? Anger again. Now if you have not experienced anger previously, you might at this point. How many of you have bargained? It's interesting, think about it. Depression, that can come too if we don't get what we bargained for. Whether prior to death or after death, you suddenly realize you are alone. You become overwhelmed, a loss of self-confidence and self-esteem. Perhaps your loved one may have handled all the financial matters. Now it's your problem. When there is an illness, you do not realize how little by little, year after year, you have accepted more and more responsibility. You tend to lose your appreciation for life. All you see is gray. A treadmill that never stops. The sun no longer shines. You turn down invitations. You stop taking care of yourself. You no longer get your hair done. You no longer go to church. You no longer play bridge. You don't go to lunch with the girls or the guys. You basically have lost your identity. And sometimes it's lost to depression. Some people find it necessary to seek their physician's help and medication to assist them to bring on their happy old self. But how many of us reach out for help? We all have that certain person that makes us feel good. We call them, we talk to them, we get off the phone, and oh, it's just like a shot in the arm. You feel so good. And you may have to call them. You may have to call them several times a day. But you feel so good when you get off the phone. You can go to that happy place. Go to your place of worship. Perhaps that will help you to see others. Believe me, no one is alone when they are grieving. Listen to music all your waking hours as it keeps the endorphins standing tall in the brain, which helps with the serotonin level. I am a firm believer to have music playing at all times as my outlook stays on an even level of happiness. You will find if you are taking care of a patient, your loved one, please know that that music will help them more than you will ever imagine. It's amazing to watch. They have done studies in Europe whereby John Philip Sousa marches have allowed people to get out of wheelchairs, not use canes, march around the room, and they hadn't done it for years. Music does a wonderful thing for our brain. Seek a support group, which will allow you to express yourself and feel the support of the group and realize that you're not alone. Acceptance. When your body is back in alignment and we understand the loss has occurred, doesn't mean we're happy with the results, but we begin the healing process. We have all seen people that slowly begin to accept invitations and try to once again get back to the society they knew. I believe being alone tends to make one stand back and become more introverted than they were previously. That is strictly my opinion based on what I personally have experienced. I'm really an outgoing person. I love life, but when my husband died, I tended to walk behind only because I did not like being alone. No one does. It doesn't matter what a good time you had, you go home, you shut the door, and you're alone. And until you accept that and can go out and gracefully enjoy yourself and come home and still be happy with yourself, you have not totally accepted it. Then again, some individuals have dealt with the long chronic illness, have already experienced the stages of grieving. And after death of a loved one, they are ready to experience what the future is going to bring. How many times have you heard, "I can't believe they're already dating"? We are not here to judge anyone. It is important we understand that some people can deal with illness, death, funerals, and place their emotions on hold. Others don't show up. Should we judge them? Absolutely not. They are coping in their own personal way. The process of grieving is the same as DNA. Everyone is an individual and has their own way of dealing with death. There is no wrong or right to grieving. No one can do it for you, nor hurry you through the process. Be your own best friend and listen to that little voice, as we all have one inside of us, directing us to the next level of the life. It is important to remember Tryon Edwards' quote, "The world is the land of the dying. The next is the land of the living." In case you've lost someone recently and it has been a difficult transition for you, perhaps you could assist others while talking about your situation in a support group. Pause for a second and imagine this. This is my wish for everyone. What if we were brought up to discuss end of life? Imagine how wonderful it would be if we talked about what we expect our life to be. Do we want quality or do we want quantity? What is yours? Your loved one's idea of end of life. Do we understand the wonderful benefits of hospice? If we had grown up with the idea that we live a life cycle and everyone will die, we could talk about it freely and prepare and plan. That would eliminate the fear associated with death and dying, and everyone would know exactly how we feel about dying, including the family, our physician, so there'd be no secrets. Remember, the medical world is brought up to cure people and not to listen to how we want to die. It is important that you have that discussion. This will be another discussion for our Bereavement Support Group, as we can make a difference in the lives of others and have that experience due to the ideas and what we expect of our loved ones. I had a friend the other day who went and paid for her funeral, and she picked out the music and she did everything, and she said, "I don't want my kids to be burdened." Well, guess what? She got home and she went to dinner, and she's all happy with herself. She said, "I've never felt such a peace inside of me." And she told the people she was having dinner with at the table, and they were just flabbergasted that you'd ever talk about anything like that. I hope that we can get past that in our community as well. Thank you for the opportunity to share a topic we all tend to omit in our daily conversations until we have to be faced with it head on. Please know I welcome any questions, and I thank Coachella Alzheimer's Group for allowing me to speak. Thank you.